Cox Business Television.
Welcome back to CBTV. I'm Mike Bram. In our last segment, we heard from a local business leader about managing through tough times. Now, two more of the panelists who shared their insights at the Executive Discussion Series, Dr. Alvin Schexnider, President of Thomas Nelson Community College, and J.R. Locke, Executive Director of the Hampton Community Development Corporation at the Hampton University Business Incubator. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike.
The conversation that I really wanted to have right now was that really looking at the character and qualities of some of the folks today and how we're developing. You're each with universities or have had some relationships with building teams and or educating folks. And in Dr. Schexnider, from the editorial board that you've been on for the Journal of Power and Ethics, what are some of your insights regarding ethics and leadership today? And has any of this changed or developed over the last 10 years?
It has changed in the sense that I think there's a great deal more emphasis on ethics. In particular, it's standard fare in most B school curricula, as you know. Right. We also have a number of colleges and universities at the undergraduate level who focus a lot of attention developing courses on ethics because it is so important to leadership. For the series that ran recently, I was asked, what's the single most important trait that a leader should have? And I said then, and I've maintained for a long time, that it is integrity. Obviously, there are lots of other skills that make for successful leadership that are required, but if one lacks integrity, nothing else matters. As right. J.R. Ewing, not this J.R., but as J.R. Ewing in the television series Dallas said, once you lose your integrity, everything else is easy.
Right.
And it really is.
That's true. And where would you all have seen probably the best learning environment for integrity? Is that something that started from a young age, or is that something that if you didn't maybe get exposed to that in a young age, where is that being learned today, or where is that being emphasized the most about integrity in our community? JR?
Well, I think people learn integrity first from home, and how they grow up, their parents, their peer group, their environment. I think most people have that basic fundamental foundation of learning integrity from the people that they grow up with and around most. They learn it in their church. And so when you have a wholesome background, I think you'll find those are the type of individuals who bring very high level integrity. Right. As an individual.
Is that the role of higher ed these days, or is there a role that really is highlighted in some of the leadership classes? There's leadership degrees now in higher ed.
Sure.
Is character and integrity and some of these other skills, is that the role also of higher ed?
I think it is one of the roles. We, about 15 years ago, the University of Richmond received a major gift from an alum, Robert Jepson, to create the Jepson School of Leadership. At the University of Virginia, the Batten family has donated $100 million to establish a school that's mainly focused on leadership and public policy. So yes, it is one of the things that I think higher education is focusing on, but that's not the only place where one hopefully gets a sense of what's really important about leadership and integrity. But yes, it is a part of the curriculum in a lot of institutions.
JR, as you've been recruiting folks for different boards and some of the organizations that you've been responsible for, what are some of these key attributes, or what are these things when you're picking up a resume that you're saying, gosh, this person sets themselves above others when you're trying to recruit folks regarding the topic of leadership and what we're talking about here with ethics and character and those things?
Well, one of the first things I look for is, a diversity in the individual's background, and trying to see exactly, how many places in life have that person had an opportunity to touch. Okay. Also look at their educational level in terms of have they been on a pattern of growth throughout their career. Because I think when you combine education as well as experiences, you have the type of individual that's in a position to really teach others. And so I'm always looking for somebody who has develop themselves so that they can be in a position to teach others.
That's excellent. I mean, I think as we're trying to figure out now, how do we take this really challenging time economically? But also, as I mentioned, I think in our panel, we've got for the first time ever 4 separate generations in the workplace at the same time. And many of them have different, work ethics, characteristics, and things like that. How are you all seeing us really as leaders now? How do we lead inside of an organization when you have so many different generations or so many different people that want to be led in different ways?
Well, I think first and foremost in any organization, whether it's the public sector, the private sector, or the third sector, which is the nonprofit, I think we lead by example. Before we went on air, you mentioned some very important people in American history and American government who led by example. I mean, I think it's, and we learn in different ways. I mean, some people learn by reading, others learn by doing, and we all learn by observing. If you model the behavior that you expect of your subordinates, people in your organization, that's powerful. And I think most individuals who are interested in a leadership role make a conscious effort to find what it is they're looking for that's going to enable them to be a better leader.
Right. And I think as throughout the years, and I look at my own career and my own opportunity, we are tried under fire. And when you're exposed to a fire, oftentimes then as steel, it becomes more tempered and hardened and more useful. And that's kind of the hope that I have here, that we've been through 2 years of tough times, but that indeed we will create better, stronger leaders because they've had to work through these challenging times. We've only got a few minutes left. If you could maybe each of you sum up, what would be that key pearl that you would say that you'd like to impart to our audience today that they should take away from these last 2 years? And I'll close with both of you.
Well, I think clearly there are moments that define us as individuals, but also as leaders. This is a very, very difficult period in the business cycle. But it's also affording some of us an opportunity to do some things, to learn some things, to make some decisions, to have a vision in spite of it all that will enable us to be more effective.
I agree, yeah. JR, give you the last word. What should we take away from these last 2 years regarding leadership?
Well, I think you mentioned it in that in many organizations, you have a cross-section of generations. And so there's no one good way to manage people. But I think if leaving people with this one thought, that there are really 3 basic fundamentals in managing people. And that's to delegate, to participate, and actually be a position in authority. And understanding when to apply each of those principles, I think is key. You delegate when you got a competent person, because they don't need detailed instruction. You just let them go for it. And then you use your position of authority for somebody who really doesn't have the knowledge. And then you participate with people who understand what's going on. Well, and the key is just knowing when to apply those.
Well, I thank you all very, very much. Thank you for your leadership in the community. Thank you for participating today, and I wish you the absolute best going forward. Thanks again.
Thank you. And to you as well. Thanks so much.
One of the things that I find that keeps me, and one of the things I think that's important to me as a leader, is to make sure that I am grounded in the business, because some days when there are 5 layers of the organization between you and the first line supervisors, you tend to lose perspective on, as Kathy said, sometimes what they need to get their job done and how they can be more effective.
Cox Business Television.